Hey folks, it's Rod with Power Group. Welcome back on the Pursuit of Wealth, your home for MJ Stocks, Crypto Assets, and Interviews. Today's Sunday, it's July 30th. Hope you're having a great weekend. And in this video, we're going to be discussing a controversial topic, which has to do with central bank digital currencies, so CBDCs for short. And we're going to be talking about the truth about CBDC, what is a CBDC. We're going to talk about the good and the bad, the ugly. Just like anything in life, there's going to be good and evil in anything, right? Even cash. US dollars or Canadian dollars or whatever fiat currency you're looking at can be used for good or bad, right? Just like anything, there's going to be good and evil in anything, right? So anything can be used depending on the facts and the circumstances. And before we get to it, I really do want to encourage thoughtful discourse as well. So let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comments below, and share this video with as many people as you can, because this is really going to become a factor in all of our lives regardless of how we stand. If we're pro, anti, it doesn't matter. This is coming. And by the end of this video, I hope that you can take away like I said, the good and the bad, but then also realize that this is probably inevitable. But before we get to it, make sure to smash the like, help support me in the channel. It doesn't cost you anything. If you're new, you can subscribe, all that good stuff, and you'll be notified on any future videos or whenever I go live. As reported by Reuters, you can see here, June 28, 2023, study shows that 130 countries right now are exploring central bank digital currencies. So a total of 130 countries representing 98% of the global economy are now exploring digital versions of their currencies, with almost half in advanced development, pilot, or launch stages, a closely followed study shows. The research by US-based Atlantic Council think tank published on Wednesday said significant progress over the past 6 months meant that all G20 countries, with the exception of Argentina, were now in one of those advanced phases. So again, this is happening whether we like it or not. And we'll dive into the good and the bad here and more in depth in just a moment, but you can see here how present works and how future potentially could work with a CBDC in the middle. But first, what is the CBDC? So they're digital currencies that are issued and backed by a central bank of a country. They serve as a digital representation of a country's fiat currency, so US dollars, Canadian dollars, for example, and are intended to be used in conjunction with physical cash. CBDCs are divided into two types: retail CBDCs, which are available to the general public, and I would say something like an XLM, right, stellar lumens, could be something that would fit that role. And there's obviously going to be multiple, right, and there's no one to rule them all, and we need the whole ecosystem to really change how finance works. And we're going to need more than one cryptocurrency, right? But I think XLM would be sort of that retail facing. And then there's going to be wholesale CBDCs, which are only available to financial institutions and interbank settlements. And that's where I think Ripple's going to come in, right? And they're building CBDCs, private ledgers, things like that. And they're really meant for the wholesale, right? So the back end, whereas XLM, I think, is going to be more of that front end. And if it sounds alarming that the public and financial institutions will have different money, well, hold on that thought, right? So it goes over the good, the bad, and the ugly. But I want to bring up what ChatGPT says, because it was along the same lines of what I was thinking, and it did a really better job articulating all of what I wanted to cover. So China to trial paying salaries using a CBDC as well. And then not only that, speaking of China, you can see here China's CBDC is linked to a digital ID. So if you get caught speeding in China, a fine is instantly deducted from your digital wallet by a surveillance system. And this is a clip here from Digital Asset Investor. I'm just going to play it here real quickly, and you can see how it's working. It's speeding, and then it's essentially taking that money directly out of that digital wallet to whoever owns it, right? Because they're going to be able to easily tell who that is, right? And then it's going to be linked to your digital wallet and the registration on your vehicle, and it'll just be automatically deducted. You won't even have any say, right? You can fight it, you go to court and things like that, but now the money's just going to be automatically taken from you. So that's an instance where I don't agree with it. I don't think that this should be happening. There's, governments literally means control, basically, at the end of the day. Excuse me. And I don't think that this is something that we should be doing. I think that this surveillance type of approach is just not a good way to go about it. But unfortunately, there's going to be some countries that go that way, right? Because not everybody is going to be, it's not a one size fits all. It's not a one strategy fits all. And the fact is there's going to be good and bad, just like anything. Cash can be used for good. Cash can be used for bad, right? Money laundering, like drug dealers and things like that, the cartel, right? Would they rather pay in cash? That most definitely, right? Because it's not traceable. Bitcoin is arguably more traceable than cash, right? So I went on ChatGPT and I put in, can central bank digital currencies be programmed to only allow spending on certain services and products? And I want you to kind of follow me here on this thought process. The reason why this could be used for good is because, for example, think about homeless ever since, COVID and things like that, right? Think of the mass, amounts of encampments in Canada. They're on the rise, and they urge housing first approach. But here in Edmonton or around your local, let me know in the comments around your local city. I heard Seattle's a gong show right now, but how's the homelessness and the homeless issue in your local neighborhood? Because I've seen, Kelowna, Edmonton, it's everywhere, right? It's not just people think it's just in your own hometown or in your own city, but it's literally everywhere. And imagine, here's an instance where it could be used for good. Imagine, so it says here, yes, central bank digital currencies can be programmed to only allow spending on certain services and products. CBDCs are digital versions of a country's fiat currency issued by a central bank that are typically based on a blockchain or distributed ledger technology. So the programmability of CBDCs is one of the key advantages of this technology, as it allows for more flexible, targeted monetary policies. Central banks can implement various restriction, controls, and rules on how CBDCs can be used. For example, some include restricted use. They can say funds can only be spent, for instance, could say that CBDCs can only be used for essential goods and services like food, healthcare, education. So again, it's talking about limited transactions. They can put expiration dates for CBDC funds, encouraging people to spend their money rather than hoarding it, thereby stimulating the economic activity. Regional limitations, talks about conditional payments, and it talks about personalized settings. So they could optimize to customize their CBDC wallets with specific spending categories, setting limits or preferences based on their financial situation. And just imagine the homeless that are getting money from the government or, some sort of, government program. Well, while that money is mostly meant to go for like essential services, people are abusing it, right? So with a CBDC, that's how it could be used for good. But I encourage that we make privacy a focus, right? But there's ways that it can be used for good. And this is a way that we could clean up our streets. We could make our streets safer, and we could help those that are in need and that are really, battling mental illness or addiction. And by only allowing it to spend on, so basically, what can't you spend it on? So you can't go to to the liquor store. You can't go to the drugstore. You can't go and get cash out directly so that you can spend it on, nefarious things or, more, drugs or something like that. If you're addicted to a particular drug, like that's how it could be used for good, right? So if you think about that, it really does make sense. And if you think about it, if you log into your financial app, into your bank, it's already being done, right? You've got dining, you've got transportation, shopping, dining, entertainment, and cash withdrawals, right? So it's all being categorized and separated already. And again, this is just one example of how it can be used for good. And I thought about, maybe instead of giving them cash, maybe give them gift cards. But this just makes all the sense in the world that you can program it so that it's only can be used for essential services, right? That's just basically the long and short of it, that, some people just aren't going to get better or do things differently unless they're forced to do so, right? And that's just the cold hard truth of it all. And then the future of free money. So as we know, nothing's free, right? When all of the airdrops and helicopter money came out, during the post C19 and everything, and during, like, this was just a kind of a tip of the iceberg, right? And after C19, universal basic income seems inevitable. What will the world look like when we all have enough, and when we all have enough? So if we all have enough, right? So it goes on to talk about how basically it's pretty much a guarantee at this point, because AI is going to create, it's going to displace so many jobs. I think there was like 300 million jobs over the next decade or so. And then all those people are going to be displaced, and universal basic income will basically be inevitable. And you got to think, when people are reliant on the government, they're going to be able to control you even more, right? Because you're not going to bite the hand that feeds you, so to speak. So, excuse me, from my perspective, this is inevitable. Let me know what you think about this as well. I'm not for it. I would never accept free money for the government. I've never taken free money from the government, other than what they just automatically send out. But I've never taken CERB. I've never taken any money during the C19. I've never taken any kind of unemployment, right? So, and I know that there's people that need to do that, but it's abused, right? I know people that are perfectly capable of working, and they just abuse the system to get a check and sit back and collect a check, when they perfectly know full well that they could work. They're just doing it either seasonal, they're off, they work in the summer and then they're off in the wintertime, and that's what they've done for decades, right? And they're not going to change until they're forced to change, right? Why would they? So how can a central bank digital currency be used for good? So financial inclusion, right? There's so many people that are unbanked, so they can increase financial inclusion by providing access to banking services for individuals who are currently unbanked or underbanked. CBDCs can be easily accessed through mobile phones or low-cost devices. And if you look at how many people are actually unbanked in the world, I think it's like 2 billion people on the planet don't have access to a bank account, right? And then SpaceX is going up, so eventually there's going to be internet all over the world. And we're going to be traveling outside of the Earth, right? And we're going to different places, and we're going to need some sort of intergalactic currency that we can send back and forth. Not only that, if God forbid anything ever happened to the Earth, we could put nodes where ledgers of this new financial system could be transmitted and continued from space. We could even put one on Mars, right? Basically, Elon Musk is heading that all himself. It's also reduced transaction costs. So digital currencies can lead to lower transaction costs and time as well, faster payments and settlements, real-time payments. We have monetary policy transmission, combating illicit activities, and enhanced consumer protection. So, for example, you could program it so that, I would say China is probably already doing this, where they program it so that if you spend, $10,000, let's say equivalent of $10,000 in China, they flag it, and then it checks to see if it was, any kind of money laundering or any kind of, fraud or any kind of suspicious activity. And, they look and they say, oh, he bought a car, right? Or, if they're not able to identify the source, then they might flag it and look into it, right? So that's another way how it can be used for, against you, so to speak. And this is what I put into ChatGPT as well, the opposite. How can it be used for evil? So that was for good. How can it be used for evil? So it says, CBDCs can be used for both positive and negative purposes, just like anything, just like cash. While CBDCs have the potential to bring out various benefits, such as increased financial inclusion, faster and cheaper transaction, improved monetary policy implementation, they can also be misused or exploited for malicious purposes. Here are some ways that CBDCs could be used for evil. Illegal transactions. CBDCs could be used for illegal activities such as money laundering, drug trafficking, financing terrorism, and other illegal transactions. The relative anonymity and ease of digital transactions may attract criminals looking to exploit the system for their gain. Cybercrime and hacking, that's always a risk, right, to anything that is based on, information technology. And then surveillance and privacy concerns. A CBDC would enable the central bank or government to monitor and track all transactions in real time. While this could help combat illicit activities, it could also lead to privacy issues and abuse of power, as personal financial data could be misused or exploited, right? Financial control, and then obviously control is a big one. Monetary manipulation, digital divide, and systemic risks, right? So again, there's going to be good and evil just like anything in the world, right? Not just in finance, in anything. And the digital dollar project here I'm in Canada, but in the US, the project to lead CBDC privacy discussions with top universities. So there's a thing called the US Constitution. And this is, in my opinion, I think that the US government's probably going to leave it to the private sector. I think Circle and USDC is likely going to be the official digital dollar, and they're going to be very, very focused on privacy and not invading people, not surveying, not looking at every single transaction where you're spending it. I think they're going to, Congress and I think these lawmakers are really going to make a big push to make it so that privacy is a main focus in the US and here in Canada as well. I think those are going to be, but there's going to be countries like China who are going to be completely different. Does that mean that it's right or wrong? At the end of the day, there's pros and cons to everything. There's good and evil in everything. And the fact is we can't control it. It's likely going to come whether or not we like it or not. What we can do is we can choose where we live and how it affects us and, how we're going to use it. And again, how we're going to use it for good, right? Just like homeless people who are struggling, well, instead of, just giving them cash, they can spend it on whatever they want and go meet with their, guy down the road and just continue to feed their addiction. We could program it so that it's only able to be used for essential services like groceries and things like that, right? Things that they actually need and that might not otherwise do because they don't have the willpower, they don't have the control, they don't have the self-esteem, right? Being homeless, your self-esteem is pretty low, therefore making you even more depressed and more, liable to start to go back into your old habits, right? So in my opinion, I think central bank digital currencies are going to be used for good in most places, but there's definitely going to be some countries that are going to exploit it, right? And there's nothing we can do but embrace it and learn how we can use it for good. But I would encourage you to let me know your thoughts and comments. Like I said, I know this is controversial. I know we're going to get a ton of people saying, they're going to be on one side of the fence or the other. It's usually a pretty extreme. There's no really happy middle. But let me know what you think about it. Do you think, was there anything that I said? What do you think? How else could it be used for good? How else could it be used for evil? And we'll end it there, but we'll continue the conversation in the comments below. Looking forward to the comments in this video. And like I said, share it around with as many people as you can, because I do think that this is very, very pertinent and important to be on top of leading into the next 5 to 10 years, as this is an inevitability in my opinion. But going into there, it's Rod with Powell Group. Thanks again for joining us on the Pursuit of Wealth, and we'll see you on the next video.